Hey, Matt Cobb coming to you with another daily devotion with Open Door Baptist Church. And I'm going to be continuing on in James as we're kind of looking through that and the life that we are supposed to have as believers and faith working together with our good works and stuff. And if you've been following along with maybe Pastor Andy through the book of Romans or Brett as he's starting Psalm 119, maybe this is your first time jumping in on a daily devotion and you're like, I'm out of place. I don't have all the backstory. We hope that these daily devotions kind of stand on their own. But if you want to kind of listen to some of the previous ones too, just look back through the archives of the daily devotions list on either Facebook or YouTube or on our app or website, and you can kind of catch back up. They're only about 5 minutes each, so they're not that long. But we're going to dive back into James chapter 1, starting in verse 9. And James writes, "Believers who are poor have something to boast about, for God has honored them. And those who are rich should boast that God has humbled them. They will fade away like a little flower in the field. The hot sun rises and the grass withers. The little flower droops and fails, and its beauty fades away. In the same way, the rich will fade away with all of their achievements." Now, on the surface, this kind of makes you think, well, then why am I even working? I don't need money, And this is not what James is talking about. See, they have the problem of a kind of a class system and people who are poor being viewed as negative, people who are rich being viewed as positive and having God's blessing. And what James is saying is like, no, listen, you don't understand. If you're poor, God has honored you. And if you're rich, you have a humble position to boast in as well too. Because here's the thing, Jesus had talked about that you can't serve two masters. You can't love God and money. You'll either hate one and be devoted to the other. So what James is trying to get us to understand and realize is that kind of like, maybe you listened to the Notorious B.I.G. back in the 90s when he said, "Mo money, mo problems." That's the idea that worldly wealth in this world will give us challenges. And so when we choose to follow after God, and we have nothing that's hiding us or kind of holding us back, we don't have any of those worldly wealth items that are kind of holding us back from following God, we have an honored position because we don't have to worry about the trappings of things. We can just follow after God with everything. If we have worldly wisdom, if God has blessed us with some of those worldly wealth things, it's a humble position because we have to make sure that we recognize who gave it to us. We have to recognize that we don't get to keep any of it anyway as well too. James talks about the flower fades and the sun rises and the grass withers. So these things that we have, this worldly wealth, we can't take it with us. There's the old saying that there's no trailer hitch on a hearse. So we come into this world with nothing, we leave this world with nothing. So if God has blessed us with worldly wealth, it's actually a thing to keep us humble. If we are followers after Jesus, to recognize that we don't serve money, we serve God. So it's just one of those things that James likes to flip things on the head just a little bit and make sure that people aren't viewing things from the world standpoint, but from God's standpoint, because people are the most important thing. It's not about money. And see, that's the problem that the early church was having, is that they were equating these rich believers with having God's blessing and they should have everything. And he gets into that a little bit later in the book, talking about the favoritism that they're showing with that as well, that he says is completely wrong. So just be encouraged today that no matter what state you're in, maybe you have nothing, maybe you have okay, maybe you have a lot. God chooses to entrust us with the things that he knows we can handle without relying on those things instead. So if God hasn't given you a lot of wealth, trust that you can follow after him with everything. If God has given you wealth, trust that he knows that you're going to do what's right with it and be a generous person as well too. So just make sure we recognize that people are the most important things in life. So hope you'll continue joining with us for daily devotions with Pastor Andy in Romans, Brett in Psalm 119, and as I'm going through the book of James, we pray that you'll have a very, very blessed day.